Okay, I've started the recording. It is 7 o'clock on Wednesday, April 20th. This is a meeting of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust. It's being held virtually pursuant to open meeting law authority. The meeting is being recorded by the town. Anyone else desiring to record the meeting may do so only after notifying the chair and may not interfere with the conduct of the meeting in so doing. With that out of the way, I really, I'll just have to let that ring for a second. I really wanted to just focus on the Maurice's campground tonight, and that's why the agenda is so very brief. But before I do this, one other matter that came up that we can't address in this meeting, but we still have to address in a pretty timely fashion, and that is relating to 95 Lawrence Road. The developer the town selected has applied to the DHCD to participate in the low income tax credit program, and they need and the DHCD will make a determination of eligibility, which is a prerequisite to filing the 40B application for approval for the project itself. They issued a 30-day letter on April 4th, which allows a 30-day comment period. So that comment period expires on May 5th. So any comments that we want to make have to be filed on or before that date. I have prepared a draft, but I need approval from the committee to send it, and I don't have it on this agenda. So I'm gonna, having already imposed on you once in April, I think I'm gonna ask you again for another quick meeting next week to review and approve that draft so that we can get it filed with DHCD in time. And I'll send the draft around to all of you before I do that. I hope that 2 extra meetings in a month is, I hope I don't have to go there again, but we're under some timing constraints. So with that said, what I want to talk about tonight is how we might bring our expertise and experience to bear on the Maurice's campground project and how to move that along to a successful conclusion.
Harry, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure, please do.
Can we authorize you, even though it's not a topic on our, under your general authority as the chair, to send a letter of, since it's, it's a straightforward, non-controversial issue, can we give you that authority and not have another meeting?
I hate to do that because I know that the select board has a policy that relates to letters by select board members that specifically requires authorization, and I kind of take that as guidance. I hate, I mean, I know how it's all going to turn out, but I think we still have to line up all our ducks and get them in a row. Hopefully it will be a very short meeting because I'll send the draft out in advance and I'll make revisions as I hear. And I hate to do that to you folks because you've been so good with your time, but I really think that that's the way we should go with that.
When is that, Harry?
I haven't, it's got to be early next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't have a real preference which day it is.
Harry, I'm trying for a housing authority meeting on Tuesday.
Okay.
At either 10 or 4, but I haven't heard back from everybody yet.
So I think what I'll probably do is ask people when they're available and see when I have to post it. But
Could we
I hope.
maybe, I'm
Go ahead.
sorry, Harry, I was gonna say, could we maybe not make it at night? If it's gonna be a short thing, maybe we can just
Sure.
find a time in the middle of the day, because even if it's short, if it's at night, it's a bit
disruptive.
Right.
disruptive.
I would
Yes.
say at the beginning of the day, so then we have the day off, all free if we could.
Okay, I will take a look at when I have to be at Nauset and suggest some times, and we'll see where we go from there, okay?
Thank you, Harry.
Okay, so let's talk about how we might best participate in the Maurice's Campground project. And I suspect that what we're talking about is primarily education and outreach, because I believe that the select board is going to consider forming a working group to manage the actual logistics of the project itself. And that may involve one or more of us. I don't know yet. But
I hope it does. I hope one or more of us can be part of that group.
Elaine, I don't think the problem is too many volunteers, so not to worry.
so,
I see, Ryan, is that the purpose of the Friday meeting of the select board?
Yes,
yeah, basically, yeah.
for him to get authorization to create the work group.
And
And there's-
also to send that comment letter on the DHCD application that's pending. So it strikes me that there are some things that we can do, including we are working on a website, and that's a place where we could host information. There is already a draft frequently asked questions floating around. There is the press release, there is the purchase and sale agreement, and I suspect that we're going to have to generate a lot more information to share with people over the course of the next 6 months, basically, or 5 months. There is probably an opportunity to get guest commentary pieces in newspapers. I know the Cape Codder has done that in the past. I wrote one on the high school building project. And again, making ourselves available for community forums or any kind of community outreach group. So those were kind of the things I thought about, but how formally do we want to organize this? Are there other avenues that we should explore?
I wonder if we shouldn't wait and see what falls out of the work groups. Just so that we can kind of get our arms around what our commitments already are and how what we're doing for the work groups might feed into, you know, some of the things that you just mentioned that make good sense.
I was going to say that too, that
Okay.
wait and see what comes out of the Friday meeting. I did want to say in terms of the website, Harry, that our new housing website, wellfleethousing.org, went live today. So yeah. And still a few things to tweak on it, but I guess we'd want to get the okay from Ryan or someone to put the current information up on the website and communicate. I mean, it could go on the town website too, and how to communicate about putting those things out there for the public.
So the press release and the frequently asked questions are on the town website. So obviously we could just put those right on to the Wellfleet Housing website. It looks great.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
So good. Barbara Woodbury did this all pro bono. And, she really helped us hone our language and our message to try to make it user-friendly.
It's already on the website. The press release and the frequently asked questions are already on our housing website.
All right.
Okay. So who manages the content on that? If somebody has a brilliant piece that they want to put on the website, what's the mechanism?
Well, for now, Barbara said that she would continue to put on stuff that we want. We don't have anyone in any of our groups that is capable of managing this. So potentially Pelinda at CDP might be, and we have to talk with her more. But for the meantime, Barbara has offered whenever we have something we want to send it to her, and she will get it on.
Yeah,
I think,
go ahead,
to
Gary.
answer your question, Harry, I think our Wednesday technical services meeting with CDP has sort of been the nexus of the discussion about the about the website and who does what on it. It's where we have discussed the idea of taking donations or having an auction on what types of material that we should put on there. So maybe we should have a permanent one for permanent section for 95 Lawrence and for Maurice's campground, at least until something is voted on.
I agree.
You mean on the website?
Yes, on our.
It's
on the
already,
town-
that's already there.
Yeah,
It's under projects though, right?
right. So that's why I'm saying more at the headline.
Well, when you scroll right off the first page, like you scroll down and you get those bar graphs, you know, with the incomes,
Yes,
right below that page is latest news, right next to subscribe to our quarterly newsletter. And it's got the picture of the sign of Maurice's, and then it's got the link to the press release and the FAQs.
she's good, that Barbara.
And then
Yep.
right under that, it starts 95 Lawrence Road project. And she's got links to that and read more. So they're pretty prominent right now and they look great. I mean, I feel like both those projects are going to have a lot more stuff that will need to be added and changed, though. Do you think that she's really up for that? I mean, I don't even know her, but if she is, amazing.
I think,
Or maybe that's something that Belinda would do. But I do think we need to be able to be nimble in terms of changing what's on the website and keeping it refreshed
Mhm.
based on breaking news.
There's even an article in here about the Maurice's from the Cape Cod Times.
Mhm. Okay, so she went ahead and did that today.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And, you know, I think having her perspective from someone outside the housing bubble has been really valuable about what she thinks the public will respond to and wants to see.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's really just an invaluable resource for us.
Yep.
And, just by the way, Jim Hood had a conflict, so he couldn't be here tonight. And Mike DeVasto is at candidates night. He told me that he wanted to get reelected so he could stay on the trust, and he was going to work on that tonight.
Good.
I'm not on Facebook, but Facebook, I think, is an important medium that we have to really look at in terms of getting the message out about Maurice's.
Apparently the message is out on Facebook. Someone let me know that, like a second homeowner who I met last night that I had sold a house to. I told her I'd been working on this big project. And she's like, I know all about it. It's on Facebook. And I was like,
goodness.
oh.
So
What's
I saw it on Facebook shortly after it came out, and there was only about 12 comments, and they were pretty positive. I went looking for it today after someone had told me there were quite a few more than 12, and there were not, as might be suspected, not unanimously positive. So I was trying to find it, but I didn't find it. So I'm just curious. And
Well,
I'll
I
keep-
did.
So
I'm
was
sorry.
it Mike DeVasto or Ryan Curley who posted it?
I think it was Ryan Curley.
And Ryan is kind of monitoring it and trying to answer questions he told me that come up that are valid questions as he sees them on that page.
So did you look him up? Just
did.
type
I
in his
did.
name?
For some reason it didn't, I'm not actually that savvy,
Yeah.
but I did search for Ryan Curley, and I did not. Oh, Ryan says he didn't post it. Someone else did.
Oh,
Is
okay.
it on the Wellfleet community page?
I think so.
Yeah, it's on one of them.
I mean, the Chamber of Commerce put it out today.
Yes, I saw
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, Ryan sent that to them.
Mhm.
Well, Harry, does it
Yes.
make sense for someone who's knowledgeable, who's in on the housing community, on the trust or one of the other groups, to take the lead on monitoring Facebook and bringing issues to our attention?
I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't have any, and I've never had any Facebook presence,
Nor do
but
I.
but we can certainly expand and enhance the frequently asked questions so that whoever is on Facebook will have information at hand so that they can respond where appropriate.
I'm going to use the Army volunteer method. Janet and Karen, excuse me, Karen and Sharon, who are obviously on it. Is that something that you could take on?
So,
I certainly will check every day
yeah,
Yeah.
and see.
Well, I wonder if Ryan's going to appoint a social media person as part of
Oh.
that committee.
That's a good
That would-
question.
So,
Well,
go ahead. I didn't mean to cut anybody off.
no, that's all right.
Well, maybe that's a suggestion, you know, that we can say to Ryan, who's obviously hearing what we're
Right.
saying, but that there should be a social media person maybe on that work group.
Right. So Ryan, if you like, if it meets your needs, I think the housing groups would be willing to take on the Facebook monitoring and maybe not the response, but bring issues to your attention on that. And we have two people, one on the partnership and one on the trust, who are active Facebook users. Excellent.
Ryan likes that.
All right. So,
Yes.
I saw that.
right. Using the Army volunteer method, we've covered it.
So
Yeah,
you
I-
don't have, all you have to do is send the information to you guys? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and if you think there's some compelling comment, bring it to Ryan's attention. It's really the town that's buying Maurice's, so we are the advocates, but we are not actually the purchasers.
Yeah, I am. I have to say, I am concerned that there's going to be a myriad of questions and a lot of pushback. So I think that, and it all shows up on one Wellfleet or on Wellfleet Raw, and that's where it's going to show up. And I think that those questions have to be answered.
Sure. Well, when they're raised, if you bring them to everyone's attention or Ryan's attention, I think we can work to respond to them.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd be happy to bring to attention anything that I find. I'm not that comfortable answering questions because
Right.
I think it's a minefield out there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's what I say. If you bring it to Harry's attention or Ryan or whoever is the conduit, that'd be great.
Okay.
And there may be a certain amount of, I mean, we all know that there are.
Look, he likes it.
Say again?
Okay.
All right.
What I was just going to say is there are a certain amount of naysayers we're never going to convince. And there are a certain
Yep.
amount of people in our community that are going to be unhappy no matter what.
I
So I
agree.
don't think we should make ourselves crazy and turn ourselves into a pretzel trying to debate or, I think if there's valid questions that we can respond to and try to diffuse, that's great. And then I think it's on all of us to spread the good word and get enough people to show up at town meeting that the
Right.
naysayers won't matter.
Right. I think
Yeah.
that as we get closer to September, we can put a lot of material and a lot of voices to that. But the one thing I have heard overwhelmingly, I wonder if we can address it now or just wait, is great idea how we're going to pay for it. Is what I've consistently heard.
Yeah. And
Well,
I think, yeah,
Go ahead,
and
Harry.
I think that requires a lot of education because
Yeah.
the debt service spreadsheet I did is good as far as it goes. But I could take it a little further because it doesn't take into account the residential, principal residential dwelling exemption that's available. So that would further reduce the burden on people whose primary residence is in Wellfleet.
Mhm.
And that changes it by a little bit. I don't know, I think it's something like 14 or 15%. So, those numbers are out there. certainly Wellfleet's ability to support additional debt is, is not an issue fiscally. It may be an issue because some people are, just debt adverse and don't want to borrow money for any reason. But, Wellfleet is way, way under the statutory debt ceiling for municipalities in Massachusetts. Last time I looked, our debt was about 17 or 18% of the ceiling. So it's less than a fifth of what towns are allowed to borrow. That's different, of course, from it being prudent to borrow that much, but it's another indication that Wellfleet is in debt-wise is in sound enough condition so that it could support this debt without jeopardizing its financial status.
That's
You know,
very rational. However,
But yes,
but we have the whole financial
yes,
crisis that's going on, number one. Number two, I look at it from, from where I'm sitting and I'm saying, okay, what about all the people that are living there now? Who is going to manage? I read that they're not going to be thrown off the property, that Wellfleet will manage this property. Who is going to do that? And I'm asking this in terms of answering questions that I suspect people are going to ask. And they're more gut questions than, rational questions.
Mhm. And that's certainly a fair question, and it's certainly something that needs to be addressed. Right now, where we are is we have secured consulting services from the Gauthiers for a year. There's a limit on how much time we can ask of them, and there is a number that determines how much we have to pay them for that time. But ultimately, we are going to have to either hire staff, and I don't know how many people that would involve, or we're going to have to lease the campground to a campground operator to operate it under, to meet our conditions. So it's an unanswered question at this point. There are two possible approaches that we've identified, but we don't have an answer in hand yet. And I realize that that's I guess a weak point in the, it's something that has to be addressed and has to be planned for.
We'll have
And
to
we- yeah.
understand too, though, that until we really had a deal that was signed, which took a lot of energy and work, there's only so many other wheels you can have spinning and dishes you can have spinning at the same time. And so we're just starting to do all of those due diligences and put together what do we need to do for each of those things.
And I totally understand what you're saying, both of you. I'm just throwing out, we're talking about
you're-
town
Yeah.
meeting and issues, and that's, maybe I'm too early to bring these things up, and I'm sure you
No.
all thought about those things.
It's at the
Always.
top of our list in terms of
Absolutely.
what we need
Quiet.
to do. Well, there's no way anybody knows if they don't ask, though, so.
I wanted to go back to the financing. I think people are going to want to know how we're going to pay for it. And we discussed at length the idea of CPA bonding to
Yep.
offset the impact on the taxpayers.
Mhm.
Should we relook at that? And again, remember, we had the meeting with Stuart
Mhm.
Saginaw, and he said that we would really have to be very specific about the carve out of the land.
Yes, he did.
Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that there are 6 acres that could be assigned to housing right off the top.
Mhm.
Is that something that, and it's roughly 30% of the total land, or roughly 30% of 6.5 million, or approximately $2 million. Do we want to revisit that? And the reason I ask is that will take time for us if that's an avenue we want to go down in order to have that money available at the time of sale. So is it a concept we want to revisit?
I wouldn't push anything off the table. There will be some challenges with that approach.
Mhm.
Obviously, one of them being competition for CPA funds.
Right, exactly.
One of them being the requirement that it has to be purchase money. We can't use the CPA funds to retire a municipal general obligation bond.
Right, it can't be after the fact. It has
Right.
to be part of the deal, right?
And we have to have a recorded in the registry of deeds restriction or commitment that part of the property is affordable housing, and that's going to be, I don't know what's involved in doing that, whether that's going to require a survey or not.
Right.
So, but certainly it's worth exploring, because if we could bond $2 million of CPA funds, that would take a significant bite out of this. And if we could find some other sources of funding, that would take a significant bite out of it too.
Well, since we've looked at it in some detail already, Harry, so maybe I'm addressing this to Ryan, is if that's an avenue, Ryan, that you think that you want to take, well, we should address that in the next couple of months, because we need to get that process started.
I think what I'm hoping will come out of this tonight is really a bunch of ideas of things that we think we can do, so that once we have a structure in place to work on this project, they'll know what we can bring to it.
Mhm.
So I'm not expecting for us to vote tonight to do, ABC.
Well, I think they're also good ideas for us to make sure then get worked into the umbrella of who's handling what and when. And
Yeah, this is more of a brainstorming session than a,
and Gary Ryan gave a thumbs up to that idea.
Right. Right. But Harry points out a really important part of it that we really have to take into consideration is what's our source of funding to support 95 Lawrence, as well as Maurice's, both in the acquisition and then in the implementation stage. So we don't have enough of a deep pockets,
Right.
To do everything, but we'll have to prioritize what we want to spend that money for. The only the barrier is if we're interested in doing the bonding as part of the purchase, then we have to do sooner rather than later.
Right. And just to sort of quantify that, we don't know exactly what POA's ask will be for community support, but the number in their response to the RFP was $500,000.
Harry, we did hear from Truro that their project, which is very similar in size to ours, the ask is between 600 and 900,000.
Would not surprise me if it was more than what's in the proposal.
Yep.
We'll just have to see.
Right. When I did have my conversation with Laura Schufelt from Mass Housing Partnership on Tuesday, she definitely brought up the potential for CPA bonding. She said that, I'm not sure a 1952 survey is going to be accepted for what we really need. And so she said, if a new survey is done, it would identify the best places for development, the best places for possible preservation, the best possible places for potential other uses. And she was actually floating the idea that CPA potential for both housing and open space could potentially be a part of it. It's not around the harbor, but it's off the bike trail, and that opportunity might also exist for additional CPA funding.
Well, I think also, once we get our arms around what the revenues would be and what, some of the ideas we've kicked around is that, we're going to have some sort of a study to figure out what makes more sense. Do we hire people or do we lease the campground out? What's that going to cost us? And then what are the revenues that will offset it? Because the remainder of that will go to this debt service or could go to this debt service.
Also,
Yeah,
the
yeah, go
idea
ahead,
of-
sorry. Go ahead,
also the
Elaine.
idea of carving out the store too
Mm-hmm.
is a piece of it.
Yeah. I think those are things we need to get working on right away in terms of, and when I say we, I'm thinking the work groups, will incorporate some of us to do that, but to figure out what does make the most sense for the town and whether or not we want to lease out the store or what we're going to do.
Have they hired an accountant to do the analysis?
No is the answer, but Ryan has reached out to someone who, of course, due to it being tax season, was quite busy. So he expects to reconnect with that person. And one of the other things that really needs to be figured is what's the scope of that work before we hire someone and just set
For
them at the
sure.
books, because, we're not buying a business per se. I mean, yes, we're going to run the campground for the next 6 years, but what we're buying is the land and we need to just make our way through the next 6 years with that business. So
Mhm.
as an aside to that, Harry and Ryan, there's a lot of confidential information on that 135 page
Mhm.
information that we got that really is part of the purchase and sales agreement, but I don't think that is appropriate. And Katie and I were talking earlier, but I think that information can't be released just publicly.
We have to figure out what the basis is for treating that as confidential. And, I took a quick look and there are a couple of things in the public records law that might shield that stuff from disclosure.
I've been involved with acquisitions, both the buying and the selling, and on the commercial side, but not on the public side. But usually the lawyers have some kind of a game plan, blueprint. They've done this lots of times. They can walk you through. Is that not true for our town council? Or is that something we can inquire about?
I think Katie in particular is the real estate person at Copeland and Page, or KP Law as they are now known. So I think she's got capabilities in that area. I don't know exactly what's in her in her resume in terms of large projects. I've done financing on large projects, but not a lot of acquisitions of large projects.
I only mean, if we just look to our right and left, Truro has recently done it, P-Town has done it, Eastham has done it, and Orleans has done it.
Mhm.
So there must be, I suspect they're all represented by the same people,
I suspect so too. Well,
by the
except
same
for
law.
Orleans.
Yeah. So there must be a wealth of experience, and
Mhm.
that we're not reinventing the wheel, as it were, and
Yes.
not paying to reinvent the wheel.
Yep.
I do think the whole, campground piece does add a little bit of a different element to it, though.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every business is different, but sometimes the nature of the investigation and evaluation can be similar.
What other towns have purchased businesses like that, though?
Well, Eastham purchased Town Center.
Yeah.
Did
But they
they put,
didn't buy the businesses.
No, but they bought the real estate, so they have some tenants that they're managing. And they've made some commitments to those tenants. I don't recall exactly what they were.
They're gonna rebuild their buildings and, they'll have leases to stay there.
Mhm.
I think the Sea Camps purchased a significant number of buildings when they bought that property that are, they have to figure out what to do with them.
Mhm.
they're not trying to run them as a business.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's differs in a little bit from Eastham running the town center property,
Yeah.
for example.
Mhm.
And that's the only one that really comes to mind right now as that I'm aware of one where a municipality actually acquired a property that has business tenants in it. And their position is also a little different in that they're not operating those businesses. The businesses
No.
are just tenants.
Mm.
So this is an additional challenge.
I believe the town of Provincetown runs or manages the Harbor Hill condominiums.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I know Michelle, has a lot of information about that.
Mhm.
I wonder if, in our technical services relationship, Andrea is on the line with us.
Yep.
If we could ask CDP for just a general question of, are there some analogous purchases by towns in the state where they have bought and run a business for some period of time?
Laura would know that too. And
Sure.
that's
Mhm.
partnership.
I think we can reach out to a number of places to find that. Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of specific things we can do pending the select board organizing a group, it sounds like we're talking mainly about information gathering in terms of identifying information that relates to other towns having operated businesses. Eastham and Provincetown coming to mind. Trying to assess what capability we have to participate in social media. Taking another look at the use of CPA funds or possible use of CPA funds and how that's going to fit with other obligations that are out there that are going to be competing for those funds, as well as the mechanics of actually using them for a project like this. So those seem to me to be all things that we can work on.
You had mentioned a forum before. That's probably premature at this point, but it wouldn't be a bad thing to maybe get on a calendar later in the summer when we feel like we have a little more information.
Yeah,
I just find the forum events pretty useful in terms of getting people out.
yeah, I think Mike is on the forum now. I used to be some time ago when I was town administrator.
Well, I see Jan on the call. Jan, is John still the head of the forum?
He's not the head, but he is on it. Sheila Lyons is the
Yeah, that's right.
president chair, whatever. But John is still on the forum.
He was pretty acceptable.
Right. I was going to say, can we maybe ask you to reach out to him and just check? And is there should we, at this point, should we be looking at putting together a program?
I'll ask him.
Okay.
I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
And there is something we can do with the housing angels too
Mhm.
in August.
Yes, we can raise money. That's what.
Right.
we
I was
can
going to
do.
say is,
Well, we could raise consciousness too.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think that's an opportunity for spreading the word.
So
Yeah.
just as an FYI, I decided to push back the meeting 2 weeks until after we have the site visit, so we have more information about it. But the partnership is meeting on Thursday, the 5th, to talk about what we can do via the, directly and through the Housing Angel programs to support it.
I guess that does bring up a question, I mean, of keeping ourselves on top of all of this, but then also the protocol for speaking to press and stuff like that about that. Can we leave that all to Ryan?
Or
What?
at least leave Ryan the hope that Ryan will manage delegating, delegating or
Right.
identifying who the spokespeople
Right.
are. I sympathize with Ryan's workload
Right.
He
and don't
says
want
speak
to
now.
make it worse than it already is.
But I think there has to be some spokesperson, because
Yep.
the other thing I was thinking of is when the time is right, we just had a piece on OMR, and I bet they'd be willing to host a forum or
Mhm.
discussion or Q&A about this when and if we're ready.
I'm sure that'll get discussed a bit on Friday night.
Yeah, so I think.
Mhm.
Okay. So I really wasn't looking for a specific action tonight. I was looking more for, does anybody have anything else they want to kind of suggest that we think about? And do we want to ask, well, for example, I don't know if, now I'm being told my internet connection is unstable. Ryan has raised his hand.
Okay,
Yes, Ryan.
It is something that we've kind of discussed, not really as a board or anything. It might be, we might be asking the housing trust to potentially fund the CPA once we have a estimated cost, just so you're aware of it.
Yep. And that means that we may have another meeting if we need to do that before May 9th. So our next meeting right now is May 9th. Although I'm still thinking of a 5-minute meeting to deal with the letter.
Maybe when we deal with the letter, we should also deal with authorizing the funds if need be.
Yeah, if we have some ballpark figure, we can take a vote on that.
I think once we come up with what we want the CPA to do,
Mhm.
then we would have a better idea
Yep.
of, the amount.
Mhm.
Well, I can certainly, when you have the information, I can call a CPA meeting or CPC meeting to discuss it. But, we have to decide whether that's an avenue we want to take.
And even if the CPC was willing to fund that, doesn't that require a town meeting action?
Well, it's interesting because it's a timing issue about when we don't have the funds yet. So we'd have to get the accounting report of what the balance is in the CPA funds, figure out, but we're really talking not about current money, but about future money, Harry, future receipts. Because in the first year, it's a relatively small amount of money.
Yeah, and I think what we're talking about right now is money to defray the cost of having a CPA look at the campground numbers, which is something that has to happen in the next 45 days, basically. So this, so this isn't, a town meeting action.
Harry, there is a $30,000 ask that will be on the CPA, the town meeting warrant.
Yep.
For the trust, unspecified.
Mm-hmm.
So you could redirect that money to this process if that's what you wanted to do, if we decided that's what you could do.
Okay, well, if the request comes to us, we have housing trust money and the donations, which are
Right.
presumably sufficient to cover the cost of this and are not encumbered CP reporting requirement and are immediately available.
Right.
Because that's what we used for the $5,000 deposit with this.
Right.
So we can do it. And, assuming the trustees vote to do that, we have the mechanism is there.
Right. We could open, theoretically, we could open a grant round for CPA funds, in the summertime. We do have the money that has not yet been allocated from the extra money that we got from the state.
Mhm.
And again, the amount of money that we need in year one to actually fund the bond is relatively small, which we could cover that with those funds, and then we're really committing future funds.
Well, a bond issued on October 1st to pay for an October 31st closing won't have any principal or interest payments until
Right, that's what I'm saying.
October of 2023.
Right, I'm saying the same thing,
Yeah.
is that
Yeah,
right, the upfront money is
Yeah.
relatively small,
yeah.
but
Mhm.
we're still committing it,
Yeah. Okay. So I think this has been good. I might suggest if Elaine, if you can give Michelle a call in Provincetown, just see what you can learn about running
Mhm.
the facility they run.
Mhm.
I can call Jackie Beebe and ask her about Town Center, although it's probably not quite on point, but
Mhm.
just make a note to myself.
Harry,
Yes.
we can, if it's okay with you, we can direct Andrea under our technical services agreement to look statewide at that question.
Mhm. That's fine, sure. I think at this point, the more information we can gather, the better we can do, better job we can do when we actually start doing stuff.
Mhm.
Anybody else have anything?
Are we done with this subject? Because if we
I-
are, I just have one comment about the Habitat project, if I can
Oh,
say
right.
it now.
That was today, wasn't it?
So the Habitat attorney sent an email and said, we had a great day in court. All went about as well as I could have hoped. The main cause for my optimism is that the judge seemed to clearly understand the issues and our positions. We have another day scheduled for tomorrow and also a view of the project site. We hope to finish then except for closing documentation. So it's optimistic, and that has to do with the lawsuit on the Old Kings Highway parcels
Mhm.
that we've been trying to move forward on for 15 years.
Yep. That's
So,
good news.
yeah, it's encouraging.
Mhm.
We have some new folks. So that's the 4 houses that we hope to build through Habitat.
On Old Kings Highway back by the power lines.
Mhm. Okay. Anything else? I can let you guys go for the evening. So, motion to adjourn, anyone?
So moved.
Kathleen, is there a second? Elaine? Okay, roll call vote. Kathleen,
Aye.
Elaine,
Aye.
Sharon,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
chair votes aye. We are adjourned at 7:49. Shortest trust meeting ever.
Thank you.
It was.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
There'll be a shorter one next week. Have a good evening.
Okay.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye.